This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
And good evening, everyone. This is the Start Spreading the News podcast here on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. I am Paul Semendinger with my compatriot, my co-host, my friend, EJ Fagan. EJ, it's October 10th. The Yankees playoff season begins tomorrow. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I am very happy the Yankees did not have to play in the wild card round. Those games were incredible. I mean, what a set of games we saw. What a set of series. But nerve-wracking, and a lot of good teams lost. So I think that bye is worth it.
Yeah, it looks like the bye is definitely worth it. Now, here, what do you think? 3 of the 4 home teams lost. So you're supposed to get this big home field advantage. Now, again, small sample size. It's the first year they've ever done it. But 3 of the 4 home teams lost. Do you think baseball is thinking they have to rethink this? I mean, they'll let it go for a couple years, but their initial gut reaction, what do you think?
No, look, I think we shouldn't expect a massive home field advantage. Maybe home team wins 55% of games or something like that. So we won't know. That's just not that wouldn't be that big of a deal. And we'd expect lots of home teams to lose their series.
So is there a better way then to give the team that's the higher ranked team, especially the one divisional winner, a better advantage, or is it just going to be what it is?
No, and look, that one divisional winner, you gotta feel for them, right? They did win their division, and so it feels like them not getting the bye really kind of hurts. But in this case, I think the third best division winners in each league were worse than some of the wild card teams, and so I think it's fair. I actually kind of think the system, if you're going to have this many teams in the playoffs and you want to not lengthen the playoffs, I think this kind of works.
It was fun. No doubt about it.
I mean, that Seattle game was, oh my God. I've seen some videos of people celebrating that comeback. That's one of the greatest playoff comeback wins ever.
Yeah. And I'm not a big fan of baseball tinkering and changing, and I get confused. I was just with a couple of friends earlier today, and they're casual baseball fans. And the one guy goes, "No, my dad, he's a Toronto fan. He lives in Canada." And he was telling me that like all the games in this first round are at home. I mean, I've never heard of such a thing. How does that happen? And I mean, what happens is people who are just sort of on the periphery get confused and they can't keep track of what's happening. So I said, no, the Blue Jays got all their games at home, but they lost them and it's over. But all that being said, it was compelling. You had the one game, you won or you lost, and then all of a sudden the next game's like do or die. And all the series except one went to 2 games only.
I mean, they were intense games. I like it a lot better than the wild card game because, I mean, one is that, like, you're right that the intensity of that second game was huge, right? It was where every game was an elimination game, and they were just a lot of fun to watch that way. Whereas with the old wild card games, the problem was always that, one game, when the game gets out of hand, it's over, and there's not much left to watch. So really, I think it's a success so far, and I think the real question is whether or not the 4 teams with the bye have like a hangover problem. And again, you've said this before.
Program,
yeah. I mean, you said this before. We're not going to know this for a while. How much that affects those teams. If all the teams lose tomorrow night, that doesn't mean that it's because of the week off. We need a lot of sample to kind of tell that difference. But I mean, either way, I think the bye and having a very strong regular season really does matter, right? It really makes an impact, and teams are going to compete very, very hard to not have to play in these 3-game series.
Yeah. And I think obviously, as you mentioned, the bye is preferable than playing these intense games. I mean, it's just, and listen, anything can happen in a short series. We know that. Max Scherzer is a great pitcher, and he had a terrible game, and the Mets then all of a sudden are up with their backs against the wall. I mean, in theory, you think you're playing the Mets, you've got to beat them 2 out of 3, and you have to beat DeGrom and Scherzer. How's that possible?
You can't predict baseball season, right? I mean, like, even in the age of DeGrom and Scherzer, in the age of the Dodgers, these are all, these are all series that anybody can win. I would not be shocked if any of the teams that advanced make the World Series or win the World Series. And I think we have to kind of think about that as Yankee fans when we go into these series where, nothing might be wrong and they could still lose. That said, I think they're pretty great. We're going to talk about this ALDS. I think they have a great shot at this ALDS. And I think they're clearly the better team. But the better team wins a series, like 60% of the time, not 100% of the time or 90% of the time.
Correct.
But that's why you got to play the games.
That's why, exactly. And so we're going to do a position by position breakdown. Let me just give you a couple of quick stats. I put these on the Start Spreading the News Yankee blog earlier today about Cleveland, because there was a thought that Cleveland's just going to roll over and they're going to be simple and easy to beat. And here, I don't think they are. I don't think they're going to be, and I think you make a great point that any of these teams can win the World Series. They had a losing record against the Yankees, the Astros, and the Mariners. But the Cleveland Guardians were 2-1 against the Dodgers. They were 3-1 against the Padres. They were 4-2 against the Rays, now out of it. 5-2 against Toronto, now out of it. But of the playoff teams they played, they had a winning record against 4 of them. And so they're definitely not a pushover. And if we look to the Yankees, yes, they were 1-5, but those losses all came when the Yankees were playing great baseball. Since their last loss to the Yankees, the Guardians have went 53-34 plus the 2 wildcard wins, and the Yankees have only gone 41-42. Now we know they righted the ship, but this idea that Cleveland is just going to roll over and lose to the Yankees is probably no, it's not even probably. It is. It's foolish. They're a good team.
This team that won their division. It's a team with Jose Ramirez, one of the best players in baseball. It's a great pitching staff, an incredible bullpen. Not as good as the Yankees, but they are. This is not an 82 win division winner. I mean, this is a 90-something win team. It's a team that is playing in the American League, not the National League, and I think they're going to put up a fight. That said, I mean, we can get to our predictions eventually. I don't think they're going to put that much of a fight, and I think it's going to be this is a pretty good matchup for the Yankees.
Nice. All right, so let's do it. Let's go position by position. I'll say the position and the players' names, and you tell me who's better. You ready?
Yes.
All right, let's start off behind the dish. The Yankees have Jose Trevino and Kyle Higashioka. The Indians, the Guardians have.
Yeah, I'll do that a couple times tonight. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and Luke Maley. Where's the advantage if there is one?
Okay, it's clearly the Yankees. I would have said going into the season that Jose Trevino and Austin Hedges are very similar players in a lot of ways. They're both kind of glove first catchers. They're both really strong gloves, but Austin Hedges can't hit. And Jose Trevino had one of those seasons. And frankly, lately, Kyle Higashioka has looked really great over the last few months. Hedges has a better arm. And so if you ask me who's going to throw out more base stealers or who's going to deter more base stealers, it's clearly Hedges. But he's just not as good as either Trevino or Higashioka.
And I don't see base stealing on the Yankee side being something that's going to happen a lot anyway.
It is on the Guardian side.
Yeah, but I'm saying the Yankees. So he's going to shut down the Yankees.
Yeah, Anthony Rizzo is going to steal a base every once in a while. He's going to do it off the pitcher, right? Not going to do it off the catcher. There's a couple of Yankees who might run a little bit, but my guess is there are 0 stolen bases for the Yankees this season, this series.
Be fun to see like Josh Bader maybe make a steal, something like that. Maybe Peraza coming off the bench. But let's get the first base. Okay, well, go on.
Yeah, I mean Peraza is that name there, right? I mean Peraza is the very fast player. He's on the bench, and he's either going to be a defensive replacement or probably a pinch runner for Matt Carpenter, and then a defensive replacement. So he'll get his chances to steal some bases.
And it'll be fun. All right, so you ready? First base, the Yankees have this guy named Anthony Rizzo, and the Guardians have a little platoon with Josh Naylor and Owen Miller. Where do you see the advantage?
I think the advantage is Rizzo. Naylor's had a pretty good season. Yeah, he actually took the Yankees pretty bad during those matchups. He can hit a home run, but he's just not nearly as good as Anthony Rizzo. I think Rizzo. You look back when he signed that contract, and I think we were all going, It'd be really nice if Rizzo was solid, right? If he was a player who, put up something close to his 2021 numbers. But Rizzo ended up putting up, I think, a pretty strong season. The WAR numbers aren't great for Rizzo, but he also gets, I think, WAR does not do a great job of measuring first base defense. And he does not like Anthony Rizzo's first base defense. And that's probably just a range thing. That he doesn't make a ton of plays in the field because he's old and kind of slow. But he saves a lot of plays that would have been errors from the other infielders. And that's just something that WAR is never going to be very good at accounting for at first base. Mark Teixeira, I think, also had pretty bad numbers out there when it just looked like he was a pretty good first baseman. So I think Rizzo is a really strong player for the Yankees. And especially if he's healthy, especially if he gets to see lots of time on base and he gets to back up Aaron Judge, I think he's just a huge advantage.
The thing I love about Rizzo is he has this sense of professionalism. He exemplifies, in other words, professionalism. You see him out on the field and this is a guy who's all in, who's a winning ball player. And I hate things like that. He's a true Yankee, stuff like that. Like, what is a true Yankee or whatever? But he just seems like you feel confident when you see Anthony Rizzo on your team. You just say, you know what? We're in good hands. Anthony Rizzo's around.
And he's one of the first few guys on this team that's won it.
That's correct.
Right? I mean, he's led a championship team in Chicago. And so it's interesting, especially in a series where you go up against, say, Houston. The Yankees are used to being the experienced playoff team. And they're just not, right? Like, there's a lot of teams with more playoff experience that they're going to go up against this season than they are. The Braves, they could see in the World Series, the Dodgers, and, of course, the Astros. And Rizzo is that guy. He's got to be that veteran leader who's been there and can demonstrate to the rest of the team what it means to win the playoffs.
And let's hope he teaches them. And let's hope the Yankees, get through round one, through round two. We'll talk about that next week. And then the week after, we'll be talking about the World Series. And we're just going to be riding this wonderful wave all the way through. I think the Yankees have a great chance. And so far, we've looked at two positions, and the Yankees have been the best. But then we go to second base, and the Yankees have Gleyber. And Cleveland has Andres Gimenez. So what do you think?
Yeah, Gimenez is clearly better. Gimenez had a fantastic season, 6 WAR this season. He's a really strong hitter. He's a really strong on-base guy, especially kind of for where he hits in the lineup. It's actually surprising how good he is. And he can play defense. And he can play a very, very strong second base. So, yeah, I think clearly Cleveland is better. Now, that said, Gleyber Torres over the last month has been very hot. He missed the last couple of days of the season with a sickness. I'm assuming that's better. You never know about whether or not players' hot streaks get interrupted by missing some time. So you hope that Gleyber Torres is ready to kind of pick up where he left off. And if he does, he's a very strong hitter, and maybe even as a pure hitter, just thinking about offense is better than Gimenez. But he's not. He's not the defensive player that Gimenez is, and that's. I think it was a former Met. Right? I forget. There was a trade that. He's a former Met. That trade worked out really well for Cleveland, and they have a knack for finding those kinds of players. So good for them.
Yeah, that's the mark of a good small market team, right? They
don't get enough credit.
Yeah,
right. I mean, this team. If you look at this team, everybody's young. Their entire bullpen has less than 2 years of service time. They only have 1 or 2 players who've been around for more than 3 or 4 years. They keep reinventing themselves because of good coaching and good scouting. You wish these owners would spend more money. Cleveland is one of those teams that just never signs anybody to a long-term contract. They actually re-signed Jose Ramirez to a very, very team-friendly contract. Ramirez gave up a lot of money to stay with Cleveland. But besides him, they don't keep anybody around for that long, but they keep winning. This team has been consistently good for a decade now?
Yeah, basically consistently good. Yeah, they're always around. They're always they're gutty and gritty and part of the whole thing. Let's go to shortstop. I believe it's going to be Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. I think both in our hearts, we'd rather see Peraza. He's an exciting young player. Kiner-Falefa is the veteran. He's the guy who's been there all year. I get it. And I also get not making big changes right for the playoffs, but sometimes you got to. But anyway, and Cleveland's got Ahmad Rosario. Where's the advantage there?
I think it's pretty even. Rosario, I think, is kind of strictly a better hitter. I think Connor Fleff is probably a better defensive player. It's interesting because the defensive statistics kind of like Connor Fleff. It depends on which one you're looking at. The StatCast statistics don't like him, but some of the other ones do. And I don't believe them. Right? I think Connor Fleff is pretty bad. Or at least pretty average at shortstop. He misses a lot of plays kind of straight to him. He's not great at turning an easy double play. Has pretty good range and makes up for some of it there. So if you think that Connor Falefa is a plus defensive player, you probably take him. Ahmed Rosario, you don't have to kind of guess, right? He's a better hitter by quite a bit than Connor Falefa. I think Peraza is probably better than Rosario than Ahmed Rosario, so it's not that big of a difference. But I think if I had to choose, I'd say give me Rosario.
All right. So you want me to call this an advantage Cleveland, or do you want me to call?
We'll call it a push. It's pretty close.
All right, it's equal. All right. Let's talk about third base. The Yankees have Josh Donaldson, and the Guardians have some guy. What's his name?
Yeah, I think Jose Ramirez is that
good.
Guy, and pretty good, and much better than Josh Donaldson. It's crazy. A couple of years ago, Ramirez had like a weird slump year, and a lot of people were asking because I think he only had 1 or 2 good years before that. Like, was that all a mirage? Was it over? And it clearly was a mirage. And Jose Ramirez is just an elite player that I don't think we ever saw coming. There are other players on that team like Lindor that you thought were just better than him. I think Jose Ramirez is looking like a guy heading for the Hall of Fame.
Isn't that amazing?
Amazing. He's going to do it entirely with Cleveland. He's a fun player to watch. He's a well-rounded player. He's a leader. Just amazing. And
here's an interesting stat. Going back to 2016, there's only 2 players who have a higher Fangraphs WAR than Ramirez's. Do you know their names?
Since 2016?
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Judge.
Incorrect. That surprises you, right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, Judge has had a lot of short years, right? Years where he didn't play a ton. Well, Trout.
That is one. Mike Trout.
Right. Mike Trout and Mookie Betts.
This is why, EJ Fagan, that you are the genius of baseball.
Oh, there we go. I got Betts. Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah, and they both have a 43.5 F-WAR. Ramirez is 39.4. So, but you got him. The only 2 guys better than him since 2016, Mookie Betts and Mike Trout, 2 also guys who are probably on their way to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and look at Mookie Betts' 2018 season. It's one of those all-time great seasons that I think we just kind of forget about a little bit because he was on the Red Sox. And I don't think it was very much a kind of a defense and base running standout performance. He was a great hitter too that season. You have to be to be an 11-win player, whatever he was that year. But it wasn't as flashy of an 11 wins as say Aaron Judge this year. But just all-time great season. Good for Mookie Betts.
If the Dodgers called you up right now, all things being equal, contracts being equal, years being equal.
Yeah, I'd take Betts.
Over Judge.
Yeah, well, he's younger. More consistent. Again, Aaron Judge had a really good season, but Betts also had a pretty good season this year. And I think he's probably going to be better later in his career than Judge is my guess. But that's also why he got a $400-something million contract, right? I mean, that's that contract is going to be much bigger than what I think Judge will get.
It's going to be a fun winter. Let's hope we don't talk about this for weeks and weeks and weeks about Aaron Judge's contract. You know what he could do that would really make me happy? Is he could sign with whoever he's going to sign, like the day he's able to do it. He won't, and it's going to drag on into January, but it'd be nice just to get it over with. But do you believe, and this is a little off tangent, but a quick EJ question here. The Mets lost. The Mets supposedly have the deepest pockets and the owner that's willing to spend the most. Does that loss make Steve Cohen, all things being equal, blow every other team out of the water and get Aaron Judge on the Mets?
I mean, I think Judge is going to get very expensive. But the question is what teams can afford to sign him? The Dodgers, for instance, are pretty maxed out. There's only so much more the Dodgers can spend money on. And there's lots of small market teams that just aren't going to be able to afford to pay Aaron Judge, even on a $300 million contract or something. That's just too rich for their blood. But then you got someone like Steve Cohen who basically has unlimited money. Yeah, it's gonna be kind of tough. I doesn't mean that he's gonna sign with the Mets, but his price is, he's gonna have other bidders, and there's not a team in baseball that wouldn't love to have Aaron Judge in right field, other than maybe the Dodgers with Mookie Betts. Who knows, right? But
maybe you move one of them to left. Who knows, right? All right, so here's the first question before we get to who's better. We have to figure out who's going to play left field. So there's a couple of options the Yankees have. Let's hear, because the Yankees haven't announced this yet as of the recording of this show. The left fielder could be Aaron Hicks. I doubt it, but it could be. It could be Oswaldo Cabrera. That's who I think it'll be, and that's who it should be. It could be Giancarlo Stanton, because then they could DH Matt Carpenter. I think those are your only real options on who might play left field. So who do you think is going to play left field? And then is that player better than Stephen Kwan?
so I think that it's going to be Oswaldo Cabrera.
I do too. Okay, good.
I think, we can talk about, I don't think there's any world where it's Hicks, right? I mean, Hicks is just not that good right now and has not earned that kind of playing time from the Yankees for quite some time. And so the question, the Stanton thing, they haven't played him in the outfield for a long time since he got injured. And he's not that good. Like, I'm not even sure I'd prefer Stanton over. I prefer to bench Stanton, I think, than play him out there in left field, because then you have a problem of what to do about Oswaldo Cabrera. Oswaldo Cabrera has been hot after a slow start to his career, like a lot of players. He's looking like one of the best players on this roster. He's a switch hitter. The Yankees don't have a lot of left-handed hitters. The only thing is, like, okay, what do you do about Matt Carpenter? And I think there's some pitching matchups where you're going to see Carpenter play over Stanton, but Carpenter also hasn't played yet. Stanton just hit a bunch of home runs to end the season. I think he's your DH immediately. Carpenter is your bench player, and if Carpenter looks good, then this is more of a discussion. But I don't think I don't think Stanton would succeed in left field. He is slow. He is not a good defensive player. And again, he's not hitting enough that you really just desperately need to get his bat in the lineup. This was when Carpenter had a 1200 OPS, it made sense to, let Carpenter DH and then put Stanton out there. But I don't think there's any world where they even consider Stanton in the outfield.
Right. I'm just bringing that up because he brought it up, or the Yankees brought it up as they had one of their initial press conferences.
I can see him playing like an inning.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that's the scenario we're talking about is, late in the game, you're out of bench players and you put Stanton out there for, the last little bit of the game.
Except I'll disagree on that, because I don't see him playing for an inning, because I think he's going to be the DH. So I don't think they're going to pencil him into the lineup. So you put him in the field, you lose your DH. I don't see that happening.
I mean, I could see Carpenter starting a game, especially if he hits well kind of going into it. But I'm with you. I don't think it's likely.
In center field, the Yankees have Josh Bader.
Harrison Bader.
Yes. I always do that.
You're thinking about Josh Hader.
I do. Harrison
almost
Bader.
Same name.
Yeah, it gets so close. And you know what we could do one time? I've written this article a couple of different ways, a couple of different times on the Start Spreading the News site. Players I've always confused.
Yeah.
Like DJ Mitchell and Adam Warren are two guys I couldn't keep them straight. They came up, they have similar names. There's a whole lot of guys like that over the years. Like, what's the difference between this one and that one? And they just have similar names, and you get them confused. But anyway, Harrison Bader came to the Yankees in that big trade for.
By the way, we
Jordan
mentioned
Montgomery.
Kwan much better, right?
Oh, yeah. I thought we decided
even
that.
if I think Cabrera is really strong, Kwan's the rookie of the year, really good player, their leadoff player, really very strong player, and it's going to be I think a main piece of that Cleveland team for a while.
And he swiped 19 bags, so he's a base stealer.
Yeah, I look all good. He's a lefty, which was helpful against the Yankees. They're going to put a lot of righties out there. Just a really strong player, and I even though I think Cabrera, I have a lot of respect for Cabrera. I don't think it's close.
So Cleveland, let me just go through this right now. We have the Yankees having the edge in only two positions so far. We have catcher and first base. Cleveland, you're giving the edge to at second base, at third base, and in left field. And I think if pushed, you'd say they get a slight edge at shortstop, but we're calling it equal. So we now move to center field, as we were saying, and I was getting a name mixed up, but it's Harrison Bader. And he's going up against a guy, and then we're going to talk about this a little bit. Does this have any effect on anything? But a guy by the name of Miles Straw.
Yeah, I think you're asking about him being a former Houston Astro.
That's not what I was going to ask.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
So, look, Miles Straw is basically like a worse version of Harrison Bader. He's fast. He's a great defensive player. He can hit. Bader at least has a history of hitting, and even in his like down season is a much better hitter than Miles Straw. I don't think we've seen 100% of what Harrison Bader can do so far this season. He hasn't been back for very long. And just he's the kind of player that you're not going to see shine a whole lot. He's made a couple of really nice plays in the outfield. But I think the playoffs are kind of where he shines. I think he's going to make some real big plays out there. I think Straw is also going to make some pretty big plays out here. But the difference is that Harrison Bader can run into one. And, for a 7-hitter, pretty good. Pretty solid 7-hitter. So, yeah, I think big edge for the Yankees with Bader.
Now, Miles Straw, I was actually at that game, had some words with some Yankee fans.
Oh, that game. Oh, yes. Yeah, we talked about that game. Okay, yeah, I forgot about that game.
Yelled at the fans, went to the wall screaming and
that's
trying
gonna
to
be
climb up. And then he made some comments, Yankee fans are the worst fans in the world, that kind of thing. I mean, we hear this. Let me take a quick aside. My dad, lifelong baseball fan, started becoming a fan way back in the wonderful year 1946. And big Red Sox fan, as we all know, loves Ted Williams, as we all know. 84 years old, still got all his facilities. He's still great. He still can have a catch. We have a catch once a week now. And he can still throw and catch the ball. It's not like I'm throwing an underhand. I'm throwing the ball to him. Maybe not as hard as I can throw, but I'm throwing. I'm not just lobbing it to him. And he catches everything. He throws it. It's great. But anyway, all that being aside, I'm getting way off on different tangents. But my dad was complaining about the Yankee fans being a little bit disgusted by them during the home run chase, booing when Judge wasn't getting pitches to hit and they're walking. It's like the guys, I mean, they got to win games. They're trying to play their best baseball. They're not just going to throw a lob ball over the middle. They shouldn't be booing them. And it was sort of falling into this whole thing of fans today, people today, blah, blah, blah. And I said, didn't Ted Williams have a bad relationship with the fans? Didn't he spit, as a gesture towards the fans at one point? And he's like, yeah, that happened. Do you think the fans are any worse today? Or do you think fans are just fans?
Look, I think the bleacher creatures have always been the bleacher creatures. I'm glad if I were a player, I probably wouldn't want to play in the outfield because I'm sure outfielders get this all over the place. I don't think it's I don't think it's changed much at all over time. If anything, it's gotten better. We're not running the field after the Yankees clinch anymore.
That's correct.
So you look at those videos from the 70s and you go that was an unruly environment in a way that I don't think it is now. So I'm sure fans can say some not nice things, and they did say some not nice things to Stephen Kwan when that incident happened, but I don't think it's any worse.
I think Straw's going to hear Miles Straw.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, he's going to get booed hard. But look, this is the playoffs. There's bigger things at hand than the number 9 hitter for the Cleveland Guardians. And so I don't think we should. I don't expect it to be the storyline.
In fact, it wasn't it was 20 years ago already, just about, when the Yankees and the Red Sox had that big thing, and Kareem Garcia going over the fence, and
that's a different environment, right? And the Yankees Red Sox is a different environment, and Pedro Martinez is a different kind of player. That'd be like Garrett Cole hitting Miles Straw and then saying, I don't know who this guy is. I don't think that's going to happen.
Correct. But I'm saying, this has been part of the game. I was at the game, believe it or not, 1981, when the Yankees, in the very first ever division series, because of the strike, beat the Milwaukee Brewers to go to the American League Championship Series. It was going to be against the Oakland A's and Billy Martin and Billy Ball and all that. Very exciting time. Reggie homered in that game. Oscar Gamble homered in that game. And when it ended, we were sitting in left field and the fans ran onto the field. And I don't know, I was probably 12, 13 years old. And I looked at my dad and I'm like, we don't do that, do we? And he's like, and so a bunch of the fans are going that way, running through the stands to leap over the field, run onto the field. And we turned around and went the other way and went to the car and safely went home. And we're not running on the field. But yeah, that does not happen anymore. So then there's this, I don't know, the Cleveland has somebody in right field. I guess his name is Oscar Gonzalez. The Yankees have somebody in right field. Where's the edge there?
That's the Yankees. The Yankees have Aaron Judge, who is coming off what I estimate. I ran the numbers today, kind of before teaching today, real quick. Haven't written them up yet. Just had the third best season of all time, behind 1923 Babe Ruth and 1918 Ty Cobb. So yeah, I think the Yankees have a small advantage here against a interesting Oscar Gonzalez, right? Fun player, can hit a little bit of power, doesn't strike out a ton, but this is a rout.
Now, let's just talk about the greatest player in the last 100 years, basically, is what you're saying. Babe Ruth in 23 and Ty Cobb in 1918. So where does Barry Bonds fit in that list? Is he fourth?
I have to go get the list. Bonds is up there. There are two Bond seasons, I believe. I think the 2004 season in particular, a year when the steroids were kind of exiting the game a little bit, and he was still putting up some pretty big numbers, and so that holds up pretty well. But Judge is ahead of them.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, this is a low standard deviation year. What that means is that it's hard for a player to stand out in baseball right now, and actually, especially in the 2021 season, I took a 3-year average of how hard it is for a player to stand out in each year, and then use that to inflate or deflate the wins above replacement numbers for everybody. And so you can normalize all those numbers, you can compare them against each other. And Judge goes from having just the 17th best season of all time to having the third and arguably the best. I mean, I think once you get back to the 1920s, that's not real baseball. That's a different sport. And so I think there's a pretty strong argument that this is the best we've ever seen. This is why the reason why I brought up Mookie Betts before is Mookie Betts is also very, very high up there when you do that calculation. As is Bryce Harper's big season and a couple of other seasons more recently that I think make a lot more sense than all the best seasons being in the 1920s.
Which is amazing because you're basically saying the best seasons come like in the 2018s and the 2010s or whatever, the high.
Well, teens. The way this works is it's actually pretty evenly distributed across decades.
Really?
Like every decade or I think every decade has something in the top 30. The difference is that we should expect that every generation to have its own generational player. But then you look at, say, like Babe Ruth's numbers in 1923, put up like a 580 on base percentage. Right? No player, no human being could put up a 580 on base percentage today, except for Barry Bonds, who did it, I think, with the help of steroids. And the reason why players had these really big seasons during the steroid era was they were able to stand out because they were able to take something that makes them a little bit better in their competition, and not all their competition was participating in that. In Babe Ruth's era, he was able to swing for home runs, and that was made him better than the rest of his competition. But once you start to professionalize baseball, once you integrate baseball, you raise the level of competition. You kind of settle into this high competition era where it's really hard to stand out. And Aaron Judge stood out more than anybody else. I mean, just an incredible season. And, I think I am comfortable calling it the best season of all time.
That is phenomenal. Yep. It's fascinating. And when you think of the great players, Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, yep. Mickey Mantle. I mean, you just go on and on. Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio,
Aaron
Ted
and Mays
Williams,
don't have a ton
Stan
of seasons all that high up those leaderboards just because they were guys who did it over a long period of time.
Right. They were consistent. I don't think Hank Aaron ever hit 50 home runs in a year. I think it was always in the 40s, right?
Right. And he did it, every year for 20 years, and still put up some pretty big years, just not, 11 wins, which is just obscene. Even with this, Aaron Judge may not make the Hall of Fame.
And we talked about that the other day. Yeah.
And that's the difference, right? Is that we're talking about seasons, not careers. Some of these guys also put up incredible seasons. There's a couple of Ted Williams seasons which really stand out. But again, he stood out during a season where a lot of players had an easier time standing out than, say, in 1982 or 1986 or 1993. And some of these seasons are I think, when you put them into that context, they get that much more incredible.
Right, because what you're doing is you're also comparing against the level of the competition.
Yes.
So there is a position called the designated hitter. The Yankees will probably use Giancarlo Stanton. They may use Matt Carpenter, and I don't really know who the Guardians are going to use. So
yeah, I mean, Will Brennan is who's listed right now, who has 11 major league games. Look, I think Stanton started to come around late in the season. He had some big home runs. He started hitting more home runs, and I think there's not a player I would trust more to save something for the postseason than Stanton. He has not had a great season. He's not had a terrible season. He had 30-something home runs. But there were periods of the season, including in September and October, that Stanton was striking out a lot. And there are some pitchers I do not trust Giancarlo Stanton against. That is guys with real vast fastball velocity. Power pitchers, I don't think Stanton can hit the fastball right now. But the good news is that Cleveland, 2 of their 3 starters are not power pitchers. Those starters are Tristan McKenzie and Cal Quantrill, who will start game 1 and game 4. Those are contact hitters, pitchers. And I think Giancarlo Stanton can take them very, very deep. Because if Stanton makes contact, he can still hit a 450-foot home run. The problem is he's not making a lot of contact. He's going to struggle against their relief pitching, very strong Cleveland relief pitching. But at least against the starters, I think Stanton is primed for a pretty good series. I think Shane Bieber could give him a lot of trouble. And I wouldn't be shocked if Matt Carpenter starts against Bieber.
Well, Bieber's going to look at game 3?
Game 2.
Game 2. All right, so that gives Stanton
and maybe game 5 on short rest.
That gives Stanton 1 game. If he has a hit or a home run, there's no way he's sitting in game 2.
I agree. But I also just, I think Matt Carpenter had an incredible season. And I think it's hard to remember that, like, he had an OPS of 1,200, which is better than Aaron Judge this season, in a pretty long look between when the Yankees got him from the Texas Rangers for nothing. He was released till he got injured right after the trade deadline. That was 2 months of being incredible. And if he were healthy and still doing that, Giancarlo Stanton would be a bench player.
That's probably true. I do have this sense. I've been wrong. Like, I thought Nestor was a mirage, right? And he came out of nowhere last year. It was like quirky and fun. And look at what he did. Sean Chacon did, was a mirage type of guy. Aaron Small did that. I mean, there's a million guys who've done that. But then he proved me wrong. He had a great year this year. He was, I think, the best Yankee starting pitcher throughout the whole year. I don't even think it's arguable. So,
look, I think there's like lots of reasons why someone could be a mirage. So one is that they just get lucky. Like they do the same thing that they've always done, and the ball just lands in the right spot. And that was Aaron Small. That was Sean Chacon. And when we looked at their advanced stats, like, that was obvious. Like, we could see that they were they were not having a great season, and that they were getting lucky, and that the terrible Yankees defense would eventually fail them, and it did. Well, Nestor Cortez wasn't that, right? Nestor Cortez had, had the really strong underlying stats, and he may have gotten lucky in the fact that he was playing above his head, but he was actually playing above his head instead of just getting kind of lucky with the batted balls and defense.
Correct.
Carpenter is somewhere in the middle. So if you look at his StatCast numbers, he had a 362 xWOBA, which is strong, but not otherworldly phenomenal. And maybe that's the player that Matt Carpenter is something worse than the numbers he put up, but still better than, for example, Giancarlo Stanton, but also just really strong as a bat off the bench.
Interesting. Because, I'm thinking of Raul Ibanez, who had that one hot streak as a Yankee late in this year. I think it was in the playoffs.
He was incredible.
Yeah. But, these guys, somehow they come back to earth, right? And so maybe for himself and for his stats and for his legend, the best thing for Matt Carpenter was that he didn't have a chance to have that decline, right?
Yeah, look, Matt Carpenter has talent, right? This is a guy who at one point in his career was looking like he was heading for the Hall of Fame. He was a core member of that Cardinals team for some time. He lost it, and then he definitely found something.
Yeah.
I think it's
I don't know if it was
decision.
Sustainable at that level. That's my point.
Right. I don't know if I'm giving him a 2-year contract, but I think I'm giving him a 1-year contract.
You bring him back.
I'm pretty good, but pretty happy with that.
Yeah. So we got the Yankees with the advantage at DH. And so if we look at the positions, the first 9, we have the Yankees taking the advantage in 4. The Cleveland 1, 2, 3, 4. Cleveland 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Excuse me. My math is terrible here as I'm counting. I keep missing the same thing. Peripheral vision. So the Yankees have the advantage in 5 positions. Cleveland has the advantage in 3 positions. 1 position is equal. The only thing we haven't talked about is the starting pitching and the bullpen. So who's got the edge in the starting pitching? The Yankees are going with Garrett Cole, Nestor Cortez, and Luis Severino, and they're talking about Tyone possibly as a relief pitcher, as maybe even the closer. But let's leave that for the next. Who's got the better rotation?
Yeah, I think it's the Yankees. And it's interesting because on paper it doesn't look like it's the Yankees. The Cleveland has 3 really strong players. Shane Bieber is a Cy Young contender. Cal Quantrill had a pretty strong season, even though he's a pitch to contact guy. He got a lot of really weak contact. Tristan McKenzie had a really strong season. I just don't think they have the stuff, right? McKenzie and Quantrill are good pitchers who put a lot of balls in play, and the Cleveland has a really good defense to turn those into outs. I think Nestor Cortez is going to saw through this Cleveland lineup. He destroys lefties. A lot of the better hitters in this team are lefties. I think Garrett Cole is going to saw through this lineup because Garrett Cole's weakness is power, people hitting home runs, and Cleveland hits very, very few home runs. I think that Luis Severino looked as good as I've seen him in a very long time in his last start. He looked like an elite pitcher in his last start and really had a very strong season just in general. And, Tyone's interesting, game 5 kind of sort of starter, even though it's really a bullpen game, closer, long relief, whatever. I mean, I think he'll start games once we get to the championship series. You don't really need him that much for the division series, but as a 4th starter, pretty good. So I think this is a pretty big advantage for the Yankees.
And so then that brings us to the bullpen. Now, the Yankees had this guy. He was the closer. He's given up a couple big late game walk-off home runs. And he has not had a good year. He's been wild. He's been inconsistent. He got a tattoo at one point in the season and got infected, and he missed some time. So there's some questions about character. There's some questions about commitment. And he was down in Florida. And the Yankees said, hey, you got to be at the workout on Friday. And he said, yeah, I don't think I'm going to come. I'll only come if I'm definitely on the team. And the Yankees said, you got to come to the workout to make the team. And so he stayed in Florida. And of course, we're talking about Aroldis Chapman. And the Yankees said, you're going to stay in Florida. You might as well stay down there because you're not on this team. Not now, at least, for the ALDS. They put their foot down. A very strong statement by the Yankees, which I like. We've talked a lot about the fact that the Yankees often defer to the veterans, and they just get in that habit like, well, Chapman's the closer. He's the guy who's going to be closing the games, and we don't really have any real replacements, so let's go to him. And instead of doing that, they said, you got to come. He didn't come, and they said, good, stay down here. I like it. Yeah. It's showing some commitment to winning rather than just.
Don't you feel like there's some history here that we?
Yeah.
I don't think that this was just like Chapman missed a workout, and so they said, you're benched. Like I think Chapman missed a workout because he was benched.
Could be. Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah, look, Aroldis Chapman has not been the closer for well over a year. He has not been an effective major league player since the day Sticky Stuff was banned. Mm-hmm. And I think he saw the writing on the wall. I think the Yankees saw the writing on the wall, and I think goodbye forever, Chapman. I'm not going to miss him, and he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. And it'll be interesting to see what team even decides to take a chance on him. But that being said, the Yankees do not have a closer. They're going to have to figure it out now. Let me just take a quick step back. I don't think you need a closer. You know what? I think if you have Mariano Rivera, then maybe you need a closer. But the Yankees, during this whole era, have done very well with finding guys to get outs in the bullpen. Even that one year when Mariano was hurt, Rafael Soriano did the job, right? The Yankees have a way of finding guys who can get outs late in games and in big spots. And
yeah,
so
but they haven't done it, right? I mean, like, yeah, sure. Like, yes.
So I'm not as concerned that Chapman's not going to be there, and I'm kind of confident that whoever Boone goes to is a quality enough pitcher that he can get the outs. That being said, they don't have a closer, and if that matters, the Yankees could be up the creek. Who's got the better bullpen?
The Cleveland Guardians have a much better bullpen than the Yankees. For the first time in probably like my time as a Yankee fan, which goes back to the 90s, the Yankees have a bad bullpen. Not even like a non-Mariano Rivera bullpen. Like the Yankees just don't have a bullpen going into these playoffs. Clay Holmes was the guy for half the season. He's been injured. They gave him one time on the DL and he came back and he wasn't good. And now they give him another time on the DL and he's back. Who knows what's going on there? Mike King is gone. He's going to have to. I don't think he's going to have to need Tommy John surgery, so he might be back next season, but he's not back for this season. The guys they traded for have been kind of up and down. Lou Trevino has at times looked really good, at times not looked great. Even Clark Schmidt, kind of when he was given a chance, gave up 4 runs not that long ago. Like I don't envy Aaron Boone. He says he doesn't have a closer. To me, the problem is he doesn't have that many reliable relievers. That's why you're hearing them say maybe it's Herman, maybe it's Tyone, maybe Schmidt's going to get some big innings. I think the only player I really trust in this bullpen right now, 100% without seeing them, is Scott Efros, who has just been incredible since they traded for him, and especially I think hasn't allowed a run in well over a month. I think he's going to see a lot of time. I think Wandy Peralta could be very important because a lot of the top Cleveland batters are lefties, and they don't have a strong bench. And so you can bring him up to face Stephen Kwan and keep him in for a while. He'll see a couple of righties, including Jose Ramirez, who's a switch hitter. But Wandy really kills lefties, and I think he's going to be really important there. But I couldn't tell you who's going to pitch the biggest, highest leverage innings. I think that it's going to be, for the entire playoffs, it's going to be an open question. And if someone steps up and is the quote-unquote closer, I think you're going to need that in order for this team to go deep into the playoffs. I just have no idea who that player is going to be.
Let me ask you this. This is crazy. It won't happen. We're just playing, right? We're just imagining. Mm-hmm. Jameson Taillon didn't have a bad year. He's definitely, if you look at the Yankees' 4 starters, he's the 4th starter. Probably the pitcher on the staff right now who has the best stuff is Luis Severino. Would it make sense in a perfect world to have Taillon start the 3rd game? No. And you use Sevy as your closer?
Severino might go like 8 innings at this point. Like, I think he's looking incredible right now. I could see Severino coming in for, say, like game 5 and pitching 2 innings and being really important there. I think I think Severino is just so good right now. So no, I was, it's one of those ideas we talked about a few weeks ago on the podcast or on the show. And we said like, hey, maybe you move Severino to the pen, you keep Herman or Tyone in. But Severino might be the best starter on the staff right now.
Yeah. He might be. It's either him or Cortez. And so,
that's and Cole could step it up too, right? You could imagine Cole being really strong in the playoffs too. He's got the experience. Like, we mentioned Rizzo. Cole's the other guy who has, experience going deep into the playoffs and winning the World Series. So
Chapman too.
Yeah. Well, he's not around anymore. So, I think this is a strong pitching staff, but I wouldn't get cute and bring Severino.
No, I wouldn't either. That's why
I think Herman and Tyone, you could imagine one of them becoming like a Patrick Corbin type who pitches, 2-3 innings at a time and looks really strong. and especially deep into the championship series when you're going to need those relief pitchers. The saving grace for the Yankees, and frankly, I think Cleveland gets helped more by this, is that there's a ton of off days, at least in the beginning of this series. And so they can have a rested bullpen for games 1, 2, and 3, and then figure it out for games 4 and 5. But I think that's good for the Guardians because they just have a much stronger bullpen.
All right, so EJ, it looks as though the Yankees on paper, position by position, have the edge. What's going to happen in the series?
I think the Yankees are going to sweep the Cleveland Guardians.
Whoa, three games.
I think this is a mismatch. I think the Yankees are not only match up well against the Guardians, that's the things the Guardians do well. Excuse me. The things the Guardians do well, the Yankees can counter it very well. Again, that's their contact pitching staff, their contact hitting department. The Yankees have really strong starting pitching, really strong defense, and probably the strongest defense they've had all season. Now that they kind of have their fully loaded team. And I think the only problem is that if Cleveland has a lead late in the game, they'll have an advantage because of the bullpen. But the Yankees have Matt Carpenter on the bench. They might have DJ LeMahieu on the bench. I'm seeing kind of conflicting reports of whether or not he's out there. So they'll have kind of a strong push late in the game, and they'll be able to pinch hit for guys quite a lot. I just think this team is much better than them. And so, yeah, I'm going sweep.
All right, so let's make this real fun, EJ. I do not gamble. We have been offered lots of opportunities to have gambling sites advertised on the Start Spreading the News blog. I have rejected and denied all of them. I don't want to promote gambling. I don't think gambling is good for the game. I don't think gambling is a good thing to do. I think people get themselves in a lot of trouble if they always think the next bet's the one that's going to get them out of trouble or whatever. But that's neither here nor there. So we're not gambling. This is not something that you can use to bet. Don't do this to Fangraphs or FanDuel or whatever it's called and whatever they are. But anyway, let's really push you, EJ. Yankees are going to sweep. That's what you're saying. Give me the scores of each game.
All right, game 1, the Yankees, Garrett Cole goes up against, I think, a much worse player in Quantrill. I think the Yankees go, whatever. They score 7 runs off of Quantrill, and maybe Cole allows to solo homer or 2. So it's 7-2.
Yankees winning game 1, 7-2. Game 2, Nestor on the
much
mound.
Closer game, right? You have a really strong pitcher in Shane Bieber, but you also have a very strong pitcher in Nestor Cortez. I think this is going to be a close game. The Yankees win 1-0.
Wow.
Very close
All right,
game.
So is this going to be anything like Joe Musgrove yesterday with the Padres, like a one hitter? Are we going to see something?
Yeah,
like that?
look, I don't think Nestor Cortez would keep it on his ear. But if Nestor Cortez has some whatever, some shiny stuff on his in some place that he's hiding it, I wouldn't be shocked. But no, look, yeah, I think Nestor Cortez is going to have a very strong start. Nestor Cortez matches up. If you look at some, so lefties against Nestor Cortez, and remember, most of Cleveland's best hitters, other than Jose Ramirez, are lefties, have something like a 350 OPS. He just destroys them in a way that it's really phenomenal. And so a right-handed lineup might have a pretty good day against Cortez. A left-handed lineup where all the righties are not very good, and Cortez is still pretty good against righties because he's been incredible this season. I think it's a mismatch. I think Cortez looks really strong. That said, Shane Bieber, I think, matches up really well against a lot of Yankees, including guys like Giancarlo Stanton, Josh Donaldson, guys who've been having trouble kind of catching up to fastballs. But I think someone comes through with a hit against Bieber and the Yankees win it.
Wow, this is great. All right, game 3, Yankees going to the sweep. Severino on the
Severino's going to have a great game. The Tristan McKenzie is another player who I think just doesn't match up well against the Yankees. He's a contact player. He has kind of low 90s stuff, gets by in deception, gets by on, I think, extension is what he's really good at. I think the Yankees hit him hard. I think, let's call it 10-2. They just blow him out. Yep.
All right, so the Yankees in this series are going to outscore the Cleveland Guardians 18-4.
Yep.
You have it right here, folks. Here are the scores.
They're not the Twins, but they feel like the Twins a little bit. So let's go. Let's go do this. Yeah, I think. Look, again, I think this is a great matchup for the Yankees. I think Cleveland is a strong team, but not a team designed to win this postseason, especially against the Yankees. The only thing I'm concerned about is the Yankee bullpen blowing games.
Listen, if you're winning games by the score of 7-2 and 10-2, you have plenty of room for the bullpen to do some poor pitching, and you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to do a quick commercial
If it's
break
4-5, if the Yankees are winning by 1 run late in the game, and it's a battle of the bullpens, then I get worried.
But except for the 1-0 game, it looks like it's not going to be that. Quick commercial right here. You see a wonderful picture of, hey, that's me. And that's the wonderful and fantastic Yankee outfielder, one of the greats in Yankees history, Roy White, on November 17th in Mahwah, New Jersey, on the campus of Ramapo College. The great Roy White and I will be having a wonderful event. It's called An Evening with Roy White. In this evening, Roy White's going to talk about growing up in Compton. He's going to talk about having polio as a kid, facing segregation in the South when he was playing in the minor leagues, and racism. He's going to talk about how he overcame all that. He's going to talk about what it was like to be a champion and what you need to do to be a champion. This whole event is going to be sponsored by the Roy White Foundation, and the Roy White Foundation is going to actually benefit from the entire event. They give scholarships to college-age students to help them pay for their costs at college in the first year. So if you have not yet gotten your tickets, go to startspreadingthenews.blog. There's a little ad there on the right-hand side of the page. Click that. You have a chance to meet Roy White. You get an 8x10 signed autograph. The admission's only $30. It's going to be a great day. November 17th, An Evening with Roy White to support the Roy White Foundation. This is a can't-miss event, and baseball season will be over. It'll be a great way to begin your winter, November 17th. All right, EJ, that brings us just about to the tippy top of the hour. Any last thoughts, ideas, or anything else for us? Uh-oh, I think you're muted.
There we go. I think that the X factor for this series, that is the player that, you're not the Aaron Judge type, so you're expecting to be really good. But the player that you think might kind of be the difference in this series, I think it's Oswaldo Cabrera. He is so good. He is one of the few players who's going to bat from the left side this series, and he has been hot. I think he makes some big plays in the outfield. I think he makes some big plays at the plate. And I think by the end of this series, we're talking about him as, a potential number 2, number 4 batter, something along those lines, depending on where you put Aaron Judge. And I'm just excited to watch it because he is just so much fun. He's got so much energy. He's a fan favorite. I think he's going to have an incredible series.
And I think, tell me if you think I'm wrong, I think his ascension, his excellent play, the way in which he carries himself on the field, like, I got this, I'm good, and I can handle the major leagues, spells the end of Andrew Benintendi's days in the Bronx.
Look, I think it depends on how deep the Yankees go to the postseason. I could imagine a world where they're both starting, but it's certainly going to be hard on them. And I think that if Donaldson or Kiner Falefa are slumping, I could see Cabrera being an infielder again at some point this playoffs. But it certainly makes it easier not to re-sign him this offseason.
It could be amazing. The offseason will be amazing, but let's hope it comes after the Yankees win. All we're asking for is just 11 more wins. It could start and make us very comfortable if EJ's correct and the Yankees sweep Cleveland 7-2, 1-0, 10-2. I'm looking forward to it. The games begin tomorrow, October the 11th. Let's go, Yankees. Thank you, everyone, for watching the Start Spreading the News podcast. This show is on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. Have a great evening.